They spent a lot of time sniping at each other. They spent a lot of time talking about Joe Biden. They're not getting anywhere without taking Trump down a notch or two, but they don't do that. They won't get into that. Nikki Haley, when asked about the cause of the Civil War, wouldn't say slavery because they do not want to damage Donald Trump's base of supporters if they ever need to use them.
Yeah, look, the important thing to understand about this primary is that it's a fundamentally fake enterprise. There is no competitive Republican primary. There's a Donald Trump coronation, and there's a bunch of people who are jockeying to do something that is kind of like running for president, but like not really running for president at this point. Trump's polling, he's up something like 50% in the national polls. Haley is close-ish in New Hampshire, depending on which poll you look at. Iowa's going to be Trump domination. And then after that, it basically looks like Trump, Trump, Trump all down the line. Like the man has complete and total command over the Republican Party. The question is just what maybe possibly a post-Trump future looks like. But as long as he's alive and capable of running for the presidency, he will control the Republican Party, even probably from a jail cell, if I had to bet. So to that end, right, we can talk about what's likely to happen in Iowa. We can talk about the margins. We can talk about which poll is going to be more accurate or whose supporters care more. But ultimately, DeSantis and Haley even, I think, know that what they're doing is running for sort of setting themselves up for the future at this point or trying to stave off humiliation in DeSantis's case. So, no, there's no chance that they're going to go after Trump because they know they can't win that way, and they can't win any other way. It's just this was really decided from the start, to be honest, and all we're doing is haggling out of what the narrative's going to be when it's over.
That said, Vaughn, if one is looking for something to stare at on the screen, looking for something to pop up, looking for the alerts to read, and the reports to listen to from you and Dasha on Monday night, the story becomes how much Donald Trump wins by and whether he exceeds expectations or doesn't. But really, what happens next with Nikki Haley, who, as Zach commented, is going into New Hampshire with a little more strength, but that'll all depend on how she performs tomorrow in Iowa.
Right, and look, for Ali, when we're talking about Nikki Haley here, right now the expectation coming out of this poll is that she comes in second place and effectively knocks off Ron DeSantis. And for Nikki Haley, the striking number, though, from that poll is the fact that just 9% of the folks who said that they intend to caucus for her said they are extremely enthusiastic about their support. Compare that to 49% of the folks who said Donald Trump, that they were extremely enthusiastic about supporting him. And that is what we have seen permeate across the electorate, not just here, but across the country. And that is where part of the electorate that I am looking at here are those independent and Democratic voters. Here on caucus night, they can change their party registration. And I just was messaging with one independent and one Democrat last night, and asking them, even with this weather, do they still intend to come, change their party registration and caucus for Nikki Haley? They said that they still are going to do that, but as an effort to take down Donald Trump. And frankly, how much weight does that actually carry? Potentially a marginal, you could see an uptick of 3 or 4% due to independents and Democrats who come to help Nikki Haley. But ultimately, that 3 or 4% could be enough to knock off Ron DeSantis tomorrow night, and then give her momentum going to New Hampshire, knowing that independents don't even have to change their registration there. And in South Carolina, folks can choose whether they take part in the Democratic primary or in the South Carolina primary. But is that enough to conquer the Republican nomination? This is the same conversation I was having in Wyoming, actually, back when Liz Cheney was running in her primary against Harriet Hageman. And Ali, the question was just how many Democrats were going to change their registration to help out Nikki Haley. And frankly, a good number of them did. But Liz Cheney still lost by about 45 percentage points to Harriet Hageman. So while they helped her out a few percentage points, it was far and away not enough to beat the Trump-backed candidate. And that's the question here that I'm going to be looking at tomorrow night in Iowa.
Zach, when this last poll came out, I was only really interested in how far ahead Donald Trump is. But something struck me. There's a question that I want to show you here that stood out to me. And the question is, who likely Iowa caucus goers would vote for if Donald Trump became the GOP nominee? Now, overall, you see that top number of everybody who's planning to be a caucus goer, 71% say that they would vote for Donald Trump if he becomes the nominee. The blue on the left, interestingly enough, 11% overall say they'd vote for Joe Biden, which is intriguing. Now, look at the second line. That's just Nikki Haley supporters. Of the people who are supporting Nikki Haley, 23% say they would support Donald Trump if he became the GOP nominee. 43% say they would go to Joe Biden. Tell me what this tells you. It's one poll, so I don't know how to evaluate whether it's a trend and whether that's important, but what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, that's just an incredible finding, right? It's really striking in the sense that it shows you that Haley is drawing from people who are just so fed up with the idea of Donald Trump running the Republican Party again and leading it again, that they're willing to vote for her, even if they might not really be Republicans even, or all that conservative, right? So that tells me two things. First, you don't win a Republican primary under those circumstances, right? That's just not going to cut it if you can't actually win the conservative base. The second thing, and this is supported by another poll I saw this week, is that it suggests that Biden's numbers may be a bit stronger than they look if you look at national polling. This other poll that I was talking about showed that something about, I think it's about 2/3 of undecided voters at present did not believe that Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. Right? The idea that Republicans might nominate him to people who aren't paying a lot of attention to American politics is kind of inconceivable, right? Because, like, how could you have this guy who's been indicted 4 times, who had a disastrous presidency? Like, what are you thinking? Are we all done with this guy? And so for voters who are going to, tune in when the general election comes around and it's time for them to cast their ballot, there's going to be a very rude awakening that this is, in fact, the choice between Biden and the chaos that we all remember very clearly of the Trump administration. And so if I'm the Biden people, I see those numbers, those Haley numbers, and I see this other poll I'm talking about, and I think we're being underestimated in the polls right now. Whether that remains to be true, as the year goes on, hard to say exactly, right? Like any presidential election between 2 major party candidates is bound to be close, given our highly polarized political system. But that finding in Iowa, wow, that really is striking.
That one surprised me too.